Well, never content with anything more than last place, Concacaf finally announced their plan for the Concacaf Women's Futsal Championships. Last to the table, as always, as it comes to the regions. But on February 11th, they did announce that the Dome in Guatemala City would be the host of the inaugural first ever women's tournament. And some may be familiar with this facility if you followed along with the men's national team when they qualified for the World Cup in this very same facility back in 2020. Now, 5 years later, the U.S. again will be looking to make some history, that time being the first team in the modern era to qualify for a Futsal World Cup under Coach Duchan. But now they will be looking to also do it as a women's team in the same facility. Very, very tough draw. There's a lot to talk about with the draw, which just happened 2 days ago on CONCACAF's YouTube channel in a live stream. They were able to actually broadcast that to all of CONCACAF. There were no restrictions on it like there typically are for their games. So if you got a chance to catch that, you did see how the groups paired up. A very, very obvious group of death. Yours truly is in it if you're a USA fan, but we'll get to that as we look here at the groups. Group A hosts Guatemala, of course, first in Group A. They will be taking on Cuba, Panama, and Mexico. Now, in Group B, we see Costa Rica, and then we will see the winners of the playoff from the Monday of this tournament between Honduras and Nicaragua, and then we will also see the United States and Canada. So three of the biggest women's teams, or what should be three of the biggest women's national teams in this tournament, all squeezed into Group A. Honduras and Nicaragua, if they win, one of those teams will be getting an extra game and moving on to a group stage against some of the toughest teams in the region. But I'm curious what you guys think about the draw itself. Do you agree with me that it is a group of death for Group B? Only the finalists get to advance in this tournament, unlike in the men's side where we have 4 CONCACAF slots for the Futsal World Cup. The women will only see 2 with this shorter field of only 16 teams participating in the Philippines. So it's going to be high octane, high contest. I talked to several folks, both here stateside as well as up north in Canada, and everyone is really in agreement for those two countries that not qualifying for the World Cup will be an absolute abject failure for their coaches, regardless of all the noise and anything else going on in the background. Both countries with similar struggles in finding some consistency with coaching staff, among other things. But organization also being a big concern for both of these big countries that should be moving on and advancing. But with Costa Rica in the same group, for me, that really changes the game as far as who is going to make it out of the group stage. There is probably going to be someone of those three, all of which should be considered potential finalists, that won't even make it out of the group. So that is huge wrinkle in the story for me that I'm sure you guys will agree with. Costa Rica being one of the few countries in North America that has had a consistent women's division. They should definitely have a well-seasoned team that is able to move on. Now, the U.S., in preparation for this, is actually having a camp right now as we speak. Today is the first day, if you're tuning in the day this video is released, from February 21st to March 2nd, where they will be in San Jose, Costa Rica, and they will be playing in a series of 3 friendlies against the Costa Rican side. So this will really tell a story. I'm curious if the results of these games get published on social media or if they will happen behind closed doors and the results will stay behind closed doors. I'm curious if we can find some folks that are there in the camp that'll help us follow along. I do not believe there's any way to follow the games from a streaming perspective. I will keep scouring the internet and YouTube to see if there is a way to tune into these matches. I'm very curious how this group will play. This group of players that Marcia Taffarel put together over the course of 2 years will now be under new leadership for the first time with Diego Barato, and the team will be seeing its first competitive matches ever as a women's outlet, and actually the first international friendlies we've seen for U.S. futsal as a whole since, I believe, 2022, when the men's team went to Umag to face some under 21 and under 23 national teams in Europe. So really the first international action for the United States in futsal in a long time, over 3 years. Curious to see what happens here. Way better preparation on paper it appears, than what the men went through to prepare for their CONCACAF finals, where the Huerta Moriero took them to South America, to Argentina, which surely there's plenty of competition for us there, but we played against club teams, not international teams, and we saw what that result was in the build-up. I think there's more to that story, as you guys know, than just how it was prepared for. But now we see a brand new leader of a national team that is untested, taking on an international team for the first time in the nation's recent history. First time in 3 years. Very interesting stuff, and says a lot about the investment we see in futsal in the United States. But this could really tell a story for what to expect from the group stage. So I'm very curious to see what happens in these friendlies over the course of this 2 weeks, because it will really tell us whether the U.S. is ready and can make it out of that group of death. These Costa Rica matches are really going to tell and expose all of the good and the bad, just like futsal does all the time. And part of the reason I love the sport so much. So curious what will come of that. Now, the team itself is almost completely comprised of the same group of women that were at the January camp in 2025 that Marcia Taffarel put together before her abrupt exit from the national team. Coach Barato only making 4 changes, 3 of them being familiar faces if you follow club futsal in the area, particularly in Michigan, where we see Brianna Hirsch, Nicole Gramado, as well as Satali Luna, all making their debuts on the national team. All 3 of those women come from the NFPL and FCS regions of the Midwest. And you may remember their names from the NFPL Women's Division from 2 years ago. They've had to rely on other tournaments and friendlies in the meantime to make their stake and make their claim to get into this team. They found a way to do it. If you've listened to the channel at all, you know that Luke and I are high on a lot of the women from this area, and this is a great shout for them. And I'm really excited to see some Midwest talent making its way into national team camp. So I'm really excited to see how they perform and whether they stay in the roster moving forward. Those are the only 4 changes. That can only be expected in such a short turn from the time that Barato was announced to the time he has to take on these national Costa Rican national team that will be well seasoned in a very tough challenge for these folks that are new to futsal. So on the national scale. So I'm curious what you guys think about this. Make sure you sound out in the comments below. I'm looking at the schedule for CONCACAF as well. Now, they did post a schedule as far as what games will be played in what order, but there's no time slots. So I don't know when these games will actually take place, if it'll be in the afternoon, in the evening. But if they are in the evening, I will do my best to do live stream watch-along parties like we did for the men. So just waiting to see what that actual final schedule looks like. Curious if you guys will be interested in that again. It seems to be something that the fans enjoyed last time. So if you are interested in that, make sure to let us know. And I cannot wait to hear your guys' thoughts on the whole arrangement with U.S. Soccer right now. And, of course, CONCACAF, who, again, finally made their decision and finally made things public. I think that we'll see some friends of the channel down at Guatemala. So I'm hoping to get some more information straight from the tournament itself to be able to bring you guys some more updated and intelligent content as we go through these qualification rounds. Until I hear from you guys then and we get an opportunity to talk about those things, as always, don't forget to play with your soul.